I would love to welcome everybody today. We are having a very special webinar on leveraging Google Earth Engine and Alpha Earth embeddings to gain ecological insights. I'm Jen Marlin. I'm the Executive Director of the Yale Center for Geospatial Solutions. And this new center is working to build capacity at Yale and beyond for researchers and scholars to use geospatial technologies like Google Earth Engine, like Alpha Earth embeddings, to address critical environmental challenges from local to global scales. And so the topic today is really a new frontier because it's at the intersection of cloud-based geospatial computing, advanced machine learning, and ecological research. Google Earth Engine has really revolutionized the way we study processes on our planet, planetary scale satellite imagery analysis. And just maybe, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks ago or so, Google released these new Alpha Earth embeddings, and they're giving us unprecedented opportunities to extract deeper insights from Earth observation data using AI. And so I am truly honored and thrilled to introduce our guest speaker, Oki Kiola, or Michael, who I met at an iGuide workshop in Colorado just this past summer. Michael is an ecologist. He's specializing in Earth observation data, and he focuses on sort of the field of geoinformatics, developing metrics, models, and maps that inform conservation strategies for dealing with disturbances and mitigating the impacts of climate change, land use change, invasive species, disease outbreaks, other disturbances like this that impact ecosystem biodiversity, as well as human populations and beyond. So Michael is a PhD candidate in the Forest Ecosystem Dynamics Lab at Washington State University in Pullman at the School of the Environment. He's working as a graduate research assistant on NASA-funded collaborative projects. He has already published many papers in journals like Remote Sensing, and he brings both theoretical knowledge and practical experience in translating remote sensing data into actionable conservation insights. So today's combination of Google Earth Engine's computational power and accessibility, coupled with Alpha Earth's advanced embedding capabilities, offers new tools to detect patterns and predict changes and make informed conservation decisions. So Michael's going to share some of examples from his research. And I'm really, really thrilled to have you with us today, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to you now. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jen, for the wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it. Okay, let me share my screen. So today I'll be talking on ecological insight from Alpha Earth embeddings using Google Earth Engine. And Dr. Jen already did a lot of introduction about who I am, and thank you once again for the introduction. So I kind of divided this talk into two. We'll go straight into Google Earth Engine, and then we'll do a little bit of more in-depth into Alpha Earth embedding. So I'll just run through GEE, and then we'll move to Alpha Earth embeddings. So GEE is a powerful cloud-based geospatial analysis platform, and it has high computational resources for almost any user who is interested in using this the platform. It was launched in 2010 and supports planetary scale environmental analysis. One of the stronghold or strong potential or capability of Google Earth Engine is that its catalog. It contains petabytes, multi-petabyte of satellite imagery and geospatial data set, or above 900 geospatial data set on Google Earth Engine catalog, and this data set are updated nearly within 24 hours. And it is also updated from new active missions. So some of the data sets you find on GEE catalog includes satellite imagery from Landsat, MODIS, name it. Other about physical variables like the nighttime light, climatic information, land cover at different scales, regional, global, as well as topographic information. It also contains some environmental and socioeconomic data sets. So the little QR code you see there, it's a way, contains link to more information about some of this information. So this is like the brain behind how GEE works. So it uses parallel high performance computational services and to process, to visualize, as well as to analyze based on what the user is doing. So we have the Earth Engine code editor, which I'll talk a little bit later, and then the third-party web apps, and you can access it using some special, using JavaScript, Python, which I'll talk a little bit more later. And you can do some on-the-fly computational analysis as well as run some batch computation. So this QR code contains information about the processes, the high computational resources of Google Earth Engine. So I think one of the most interesting aspects of GEE as well is the ability to export information. So you can export image in different formats. You can export table or vector data set as CSV or KML, KMZ. You can also export large image tiles like map tiles. You can also do export videos, GIF, animation, and directly to your Google Drive or to Google Cloud Storage, which you might have to pay a little bit paid for. And then you can also export or upload information to your Google asset, which comes with an account that you have with it. So this is just to show the storage. You can run a lot of analysis, but the focus here is just to show that you have up to 250 gigabytes to upload information into Google Earth Engine based on your personal account. And these are just information on the quotas in terms of the amount of runs you can do. More information can be found in the QR link or the publication. So another stronghold of potential of GEE is the platform supports different forms of analysis, and there are up to even if more than 800 functions that can be run, with which you can do some simple mathematical functions such as addition, subtraction, or some logical operations. You can also do some statistical analysis, descriptive, correlation, regression, and it also contains machine learning functions, which you can do some supervised, unsupervised analysis, and then some image processing operations too, as well, and some other geostatistical analysis that can be done on the platform. So the Google Earth Engine also supports visualization of data sets. You can visualize the map, your classified map, or even charts using the code editor, the JavaScript code editor, or other platforms that you're using. And I think this is also one of the most interesting aspects of GEE to me, ability to create a web-based application to share with collaborators, with end users, with which they can access all your, maybe your process outputs, your maps, or your results. And I have a couple of examples. This is one global population explorer, with which you can explore different countries' population. You can see on the right side, you can see the chart for each country, and it also shows the population density. This is another one from Protocol and Ansen. They use a lot of GEE in some of their publications, and this is one of the apps they created for global forest change, with which you can access different forest cover changes across the globe. This is from a colleague that I met at HiGAD, which I found really interesting, Global Flood Mapper, which you can use to map flood in different states, in different countries, as well as visualize. So the app encompasses on-the-fly analysis at the back end. You can also visualize, and then you can also export information. This is one of the apps I've created personally and with some of my collaborators. This is recent. We created this for the first national level canopy cover that we did for Nigeria. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And you can see on the left-hand side, just a base map, a Google satellite image, and then on the right side, the canopy cover. And you can also export information. This is another one that I created for fire indices, where you can compare pre-fire and fire indices. And the manuscript are still in preparation and review. So to access GE, they updated their policy, I think last year or so. You need to have a cloud project that has the Earth Engine API enabled, and that is registered either for commercial or non-commercial use, and that grants you role to use. And you can also create your own personal account, create a project, and then do some analysis there. And this link, the code here, is the link to register an account with your Gmail. So this is the JavaScript API code editor where you can run different analyses. So this is just to show some functions of the interface. So we have the script where you can write your own personal script for different things. It contains documents to know more about some functions that can be used, JavaScript functions. You have the asset where you can upload your files and also export files too. And this is the code editor where you can write the code and add some other functions. This is the third column here shows the inspector where you can inspect your maps, and then the console that you can see the outputs of your script, and then the tags where you can run and export or import some data set into the JavaScript API code editor. And you can see this is where you have the project. So you need to create a project to use the JavaScript interface. So you can access Google Earth Engine using Python, and a very rich capture of this is using the GE map, which was created by Dr. Kim-Cheng Wu. And it's a very robust Python package for interactive mapping with GE. It has over 360 notebook. And also you can, if you're an R user, you can use this R function, R package called RGE. It's like trying to use Python within R. It uses this reticulates to allow people to access their GE as well. And if, like I explained, you can also use the JavaScript. So more information about Google Earth Engine, this is the publication on it. You can look through the publication for more detailed information about it, and I have some relevant links that contains where you can find some tutorials, some available data set already that you don't need to create a new one, and some question and answer link. So with that, I will go right into AlphaHead Embedded. So AlphaHead Embedded was it's a product from the AI model called the AlphaHead Foundation. So this AlphaHead Foundation is a geospatial foundation model, and it was trained on a vast array of data. So it unified different or multimodal Earth observation data into embeddings. And there are two major challenges this AlphaHead Foundation is trying to solve, which was developed by Google DeepMind. Data overload. We have petabytes of data from Landsat, from Sentinel, from JEDI, and all different Earth observation sources. And the goal is to reduce this data overload and as well to prevent inconsistent information. So essentially, the AlphaHead Foundation, or AEF as a short form, tries to minimize these two major challenges. So in training the model, they use a lot of data sets from different sources. Like I said, they use optical data, Landsat, Sentinel. They use radar data from Sentinel-1, the combined JEDI, which is like the LiDAR component. They use DEMs, climatic information, and even text files. So it's used or combined a lot of information to generate the output. And this is just a link to the publication. So essentially, what is this alpha head embeddings? So the model, which is the AEF Alpha Head Foundation, is an embedding field model yielding embeddings, and this embeddings was referred to in the manuscript, in the publication, as a highly general geospatial representation. So each pixel contains information, spatial information, temporal and measurement context across multiple sources, that is, across optical, passive and active remote sensing sensors, text information, and which supports or enables accurate and efficient production of maps and monitoring systems from local to global scale. So the alpha head embeddings was generated annually. So we have the annual analysis ready embeddings layer, which is available globally, and it has a spatial resolution of 10 meter by 10 meter. And each pixel contains a 64-dimensional vector, which is referred to as band, or we can see it as band. So each alpha head embeddings, if you take a pixel from the image, each pixel contains 64 bands ranging from A0 to A63. And the information about this different vector data is that each pixel contains a summary of annual environmental trajectory. We have the data annually, not by monthly or by weekly. So each pixel summarizes annual environmental trajectory, and individual bands, for example, band 0, band 1, band 2, are not independently interpretable. This means the 64 bands can be likened to a 3D, and each pixel that contains 64 bands can be represented as a coordinate on that 3D sphere. And to make sense out of it, all the bands needs to be combined together for meaningful interpretation. And the embeddings can be compared across years. This means the data set is linearly composable. That is, it can be aggregated over coarse resolution, and you can also compare across years. So this huge data set is available on Google Earth Engine from 2017 to 2024 annually. So this is just to show the 64 embeddings vector, the feature vector for a particular pixel. So we can see that each band carry different and unique information. So the aggregate of it is what can be used, and that won't affect the semantic information for that particular pixel. So the embeddings are tagged at approximately 164,000 by 164,000 meters, and each of these images contains 64 bands from band 0 to band 63. So what are the applications? What are the uses? Based on my study of this alpha head embeddings and from the manuscript and from some of the analysis that have been done, one of the potent analysis that can be done with this AEE, which is the alpha head embeddings, is similarity search. So you can use this 64 bands pixel and then choose a specific location of your choice, and then let's say degraded forest or a burnt area. And then based on that particular 64 band vector information, you can do a similarity search to look at other locations if they are related to those specific selected feature or not. You can also do change detection, which I think is a very strong suit for this data set. We can look at the 64 band vector for a particular year and compare it with another year to look at changes in maybe surface processes, land cover, urban sprawl, and different applications. We can also perform simple clustering analysis to group these different vector data to categorize different land covers, which can be compared with different land cover types. And also a potential application is to use this data as covariate in different models, machine learning models or deep learning models. And it should be noted that these values do not essentially carry any significant information. They are unit length feature vector, and they are like output or what the AI model, the AlphaEd Foundation model learned looking through all this petabyte of multimodal data. So from optical, from LiDAR, from climate, from elevation data, looking through all these data sets. This is the output that the AI model, the AlphaEd Foundation learned, and there is so much that can be taught with it. Okay, so just to show have a visual look at this data set. This is an image of an agricultural field. This is for 2020, and this is for 2024. Based on the visualization, we can notice some changes in the color, which is also based on the values of this vector data. When I say vector data, not in GIS like point or polygon, I'm referring to the embeddings here. Okay. So this is a satellite image of the same location, and this is the dot product. So this is like a similarity. So essentially taking 2020 and 2024, and then having a specific, for example, a location, I'm looking at the values. Have they been going in the same direction and magnitude because of the 64 vector data, or they have a close distance between them? So this is what the dot product is essentially. I was to talk more about this. And looking at a particular point, if you zoom down to a particular point, you can see for 2020, we have more reddish color. And for 2024, it's like purple. And then using the dot product, which is like looking at the vector data, are they similar? What is their direction? Are they in the same direction or opposite? And the bright color represents that they vary a little, while the dark color shows that they are still similar or in the same direction. So this is one of the uses of AlphaEd embeddings. We can detect. This can be used for change. This can be used to look at what is happening in a particular location. So just to reiterate more about the image I showed earlier, this is for 20 and 2024, the same location, and you can see the 64 vector feature vector, the embeddings. The orange represents that of 2020. The blue represents that of 2024. So just if you zoom down to A1 here, you can see they're going in different direction. And we also have for A8 here. So running analysis like the dot product, which is like the sum of the product. So if you're summing 2020 and 2024, you find the product of both, and then you sum them. We can use it to determine if those values are going in the same direction or not. So I think this is like the most important aspect of this talk, approaches to utilizing this data. And this is based on my thinking, based on what the way they created the data, the manuscript, and some online research. How can we approach this data and utilize it? And this is just me thinking out loud and based on what other people have done as well. So we can have all the 64 vector embeddings. We can sample based on a specific area of interest. For example, we can look at a deforested area or a wetland or a bare land. We can pick the values, the embeddings, the 64-band value for that particular surface feature of our interest. We can sample that location. And then within our study area, we can do a simple analysis called the dot product, which I will explain. So essentially, we are taking, let's say, a locked area, for example, the pixel are 10 meter by 10 meter for a locked area. I'm taking the 64 bands information, and then I'm multiplying it with the rest of the 64 bands within the study area. So I have a study area, I picked a specific, maybe locked area. I'm using the 64 band information, the embeddings, to multiply the rest of the entire area. And then that's the product, and then summing the products. I can use that information for a lot of things to detect locations that are similar to that locked area. So essentially, I'm just taking a pixel of my area of interest, locked area, fireborne, and then I'm trying to assess, are there similar areas within this my study area? So the process is like doing a cosine similarity or a dot product. So I can multiply the pixels and I can also sum the result and then use it to detect similar feature location, or use it as a predictor variable in classification or in mapping that specific area of interest. That's approach one. Then the approach two is to just take all the bounds and use them as a predictor variable in a classification or in a regression model. Or I can take all the bounds and then do a dimensional reduction, maybe set to 5 or 10. Example is the principal component analysis, and then I can use the band. So I can take all the bands from the image from a study area, use it to map something, or I can reduce the band further and then use it. So that's my approach two. Then the third approach is to incorporate temporal information. So each of these embeddings contain temporal information, and the way the model was structured is it contains the spatial, like I said earlier, the temporal as well as the measurement information. So I can take 2 years image of my study area, and then I can do some analysis. This is like one of the most informative or arithmetic or algebraic analysis that you can do with embeddings, because they are vector data. They have in our case, we have 64 dimensions of the vector data. So I can take those data sets for 2 years and do dot product. So dot product, for example, is just like, if you look at the graph on the right here, the A can be the band 0 from, let's say, 2020, and then the B can be the A0 from 2024. So I can do a sum of their products and then use it to assess what has happened. And the goal is to look at the values. Are they going in the same direction or not? So essentially, the dot product or cosine similarity is looking at two vectors in the dimensional space, in our case, 64 dimensional space, and we are looking at they moving in the same direction and magnitude? Not. So when you do this analysis, a positive value tells you that the vector point in similar direction and have large magnitude, but when it has negative, that means they are in opposite, and values close to 0, they are perpendicular. So another related analysis is Euclidean distance. This is just looking at the vector data. So let's say we have a sphere and we have a point on the sphere representing 2024. And then we have another point representing 2020. Those are two vectors that we're comparing. So we can just look at the geometric distance between the vector, and that can be calculated as the square root. So you find a difference between the, let's say, from 2020 band 0, from 2024 band 0, you find a difference, you square the difference, and then you find the square root. So that is just to look at the direction. If you look on the graph, at the right hand here, you can see we're just trying to look at the geometric distance between the two. So this can be done for 2 years or for other years. And we can use this in detecting change, what has changed, fire intensity, fire severity, or urbanization, or things like that. And we can also use it in modeling this change. So the fourth approach to this is to do a simple subtraction. So you take a pixel that contains 64 embeddings from a year, and then you can subtract it from the following year. And this is just to get the difference in the value, which is also similar to the Euclidean distance. But in this case, this still contains a lot of information. We still have all the 64 bonds compared to the Euclidean distance here, where the dot product and the Euclidean distance, you are getting just a single band information. So here we can just do a simple subtraction and then use the data as predictor variable. We can also use it because each of those pixels still contains 64 values, 64 embeddings. So we can use it to check what has changed from what. Vegetation has changed to bare lands or to logged area. We can use it to look into information like that, fire severity, and if we can do this for many years. The embeddings is available from 2017, so we can do this in form of a time series analysis to look at the patterns or how maybe a flooded area has changed over years. We can just do a simple subtraction. And then the last approach is to do a simple subtraction. And then, like I said, we still have all the 64 embedded vector. And then we can further do dimensional reduction using principal component analysis. And then we can also use this reduced data set, so many things. So those are the different approaches with which I'm thinking, and based on what has been done online too, from the manuscript, from the publication rather, how this embedding data can be utilized in real world. So let's look at some examples. So I'm really excited about this project. This is one of the projects we just did with some of my collaborators. And this is first of its kind for a country. So I'm from Nigeria, and we are trying to do the first national tree canopy cover for the country. So we generated on the left-hand side, you can see the map of this reference point. So we generated over 4,000 points, and then we have to add 10 meter by at 30 meter rather by 30 meter, and then we had to look at the tree canopy cover within those points. So we use Google Satellite because we do not have high resolution imagery that covers the entire country. So we use Google Satellite data, and then we looked at all those references. We out of 4,000, we had over 3,000 that were useful, and then we did random forest. We tested different models in predicting tree canopy cover for the country. And if you look at the table, the right-hand side, using bands and indices alone, we had up to 81% correlation with our test data set and with an error of 17.1%. And using only bands, we had 82.1, which is slightly higher, and then not a significant reduction in the error. But when we use the alpha het embeddings alone, we had 83, almost 84% accuracy and a reduction in the error. And then when we combine all the bands, the indices, and the alpha het embeddings, we had even a much more smaller error in our model. And this is just to show the distribution of the tree canopy. So from A to C, it shows for 2017, 2020, and then for 2024. And then from D to F, it's showing the binary classification of forest and non-forest across the country. So we wanted to dig deeper and look and also apply this alpha het embedded in how we can understand further at local scale. So this is Gashaka County in my country, Nigeria, the largest national park. A and B are showing the tree canopy cover in 2017, and B is showing in 2024. And C is the difference in that canopy cover, which was not normalized by the error of the model. This is just subtracting A from B. And then D is also for the forest and non-forest. But if you zoom down to the top right corner, we can see that there are a lot of changes, up to 45% canopy changes canopy cover changes happen. So we wanted to see if alpha height embeddings can also help us in understanding these changes. So on the image here shows the true canopy cover for the top right corner that I showed earlier for 2017 and for 2024, and you can see the change in the canopy cover. And then we did the dot product, which is the sum of the product of alpha height embedded for that location for 2017 and 2024. And we wanted to see if we could actually, the dot product can identify the places where there was changes. And if you look at the arrows for 2017 and for 2024, there are differences, and we have that captured in the alpha height embedding dot product as well. If you look at other location, then if you look at the bigger picture, you can see there was a lot of changes in canopy cover, which was also captured by the dot product, essentially looking at the 64 band vector data for 2017 and 2024, and then looking at, are they projecting or are they moving in a similar pattern, in a similar direction? And this is essentially what the dot product capture, which can also be related to changes in tree canopy cover. And zooming in further, if you look at the center here, we have more tree canopy cover in 2024. And then we have this cover, the dot products. If you look at the yellow patches here. So it can be used to detect changes. Yeah.
Sorry, let me just ask you a question. On my screen, it's black in the dot product. Do other people see that?
Yes, it's black.
Yes. Can you see some yellow patches?
No, it's not coming up on my screen at all. It just looks completely black.
So there's, if you turn your brightness up, you can barely see it.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Austin. All right, maybe we'll try that. All right.
Thank you. Okay, so just to look at where you guys are in Yale, New Havens in Connecticut. This is 2017 alpha height embedded from New Havens, and this is for 2024. And this is like the dot product again, looking at the values. Are they in the same direction and magnitude or not? And then if you look at some, and this is the satellite imagery for the same location. I wouldn't know the year for the satellite imagery, but I assume 2024. This is why I'm assuming. So if you look at these locations in 2017 and 2024, they are sort of different, which was captured. So in the dot product, lighter or brighter values shows that the vector are not necessarily in the same direction, while the darker color shows that they are in the same direction and magnitude. So if you look at the square, the pink square box captures the differences, some of the differences. And if you look further into the yellow boxes, if you look at the 2017 and 2024, there is like a hand stretched out like a palm. If you look at the dot product as well, on the right-hand side, this was fully captured. And this is why I said the satellite imagery might be from 2024. Because if you look at the imagery tool, we have those interface, that hand stretched palm visible, which was not captured in 2017. So this is with respect to urban area. So it can also be used to detect changes in urban area. So this is another analysis. The publication, they tested embeddings data with other feature engineered data products, and they found out that it reduces error by almost 24%, and that we can also aggregate the data at coarse resolution, and the embeddings will still capture the rich information. So we just did a small study looking at land cover for a particular forest in my home country, Nigeria. And on the left-hand side, the first figure shows Sentinel-2 imagery, the 2022 embeddings, and then they classified land cover. So if you look at the error matrix table, the green part shows when we used only the bands. We had 87% accuracy. So, and the light brown section of the table shows where we used only the embeddings, all the 64 bands only. We achieved 93% accuracy. And the focus here is to the different classification that we have. You can see for the low dense vegetation, it was able to distinguish it more compared to the bands as well as the water body. And when we combine all of the bands as well as the embeddings, we also had 92%. This is to show that even at the native resolution 10 meter by 10 meter, using alpha height embeddings alone, is able to capture more information about the surfaces. So we also did the same work for Landsat. And this time around, we did near neighborhood aggregation average of this alpha height embeddings to 30 meter by 30 meter. And it is amazing to also discover that using bands alone, we achieved 93.7% using Landsat band alone. Using alpha height embeddings alone, even at this 30 meter by 30 meter, we were still able to capture good information at 93%, which is also the same as Sentinel-2A when we use the alpha height embeddings. So the publication shows that the vector data is linearly composable, that we can aggregate to coarse resolution. But testing this at even a smaller scale shows that the embeddings is also able, even at different scale, capture rich information about the Earth. And each pixel, like I said, contains optical information, a lot of information from different Earth observation. So let's switch gears a little bit. I think this will be the final example. This is related to my own personal, my dissertation, Broken Rock Habitat. So essentially, we have rocky habitat, but there is also a subtype of rocky habitat, which are called broken rock habitat. These are like fragmented rocks, which are used. They provide several benefits for different animals. So their surface characteristics, such as the rock sizes, the shape, the roughness, the moss cover, as well as their subsurface characteristics in terms of the interstitial spaces, like the holes between the rocks, are also useful for different animals, providing different ecological functions, such as source of food material, shade, thermal refuge, concealment from predators, escape from predators. And these are some of the animals that use this broken rock habitat. We have the pika, the bear. It's interesting that bear would go to this height to find some moth that travel. This insect, they move from low range to high altitude area, and then they hide, I think, during the summer. And then the bears go to those places and, trying to find this moth with it around. So because these broken rock habitats, they have different characteristics. They have different features. Some of them have woody debris, moss cover under the forest, different rock sizes, different rock boulders. So my dissertation essentially is to look at these different sites of broken rock habitat. We go there, we take some ground data, we fly drones as well. Essentially, my chapter 3 is looking at how we can upscale these data sets to a larger scale. So just the examples I'll be showing here is we go to the field, we lay 10 meter by 10 meter plots on those different rocky habitat patches where we have broken rock habitat, and then we take iPad photos at that 10 meter by 10 meter with coordinates using a Trimble GPS. Then we stitch all the images together to get a 2D and 3D representation of those locations, and also with fly drone. And for the example, we'll run the image through the Python package to segment all the rocks, and then we are able to estimate D50, D84. I can explain further maybe in the Q&A session. And we try to predict this D50, D84. This D50 and D84 essentially represent that D50 represent median. So it's like 50% of the rock sizes are less than that median. While D84 is like 84 percentile, 84% of those rock sizes are less than that particular value. So we are trying to predict the rock sizes for those locations. And we also try to use embeddings as predictor variable. So for D50, we can see using alpha head embeddings alone, we had up to 65% correlation with our test data set, and the error also reduced. And combining the alpha head embeddings with NAIP bands, indices, and texture information, we achieve a slightly higher in accuracy for D50, and same thing for D84. The embeddings was able to predict very well the rock sizes, and the RMSE was really, really low in using embeddings alone and then comparing it with other, using it together with NAIP bands and indices. So this is to show that even with rocks, this embeddings is capturing some relevant information and can be used in mapping these special habitats. So this is just a picture to show on the left hand is my study area, which is the Washington Cascade. It's a big project. We have other collaborators on the work. So this is NAIP imagery for 2023. This is the predicted D84. Of course, the entire cascade does not contain broken rocks. There are forests, there are rocky habitat itself. But we have a publication where we did actually map the rock and non-rocky aspect of the Washington Cascade, which has been published, led by one of my lab's colleagues, Joe. And then based on that, we filtered the prediction to those rocky and rocky area within the cascade, which you can see on the right-hand side. So just to round up and summarize, alpha embedding is useful and can be used for different lot of applications, just like we've seen, but there are some also limitations or challenges. Each pixel is an annual, it contains annual environmental trajectory. So we can't compare intra-annual or do some seasonal assessments. Each pixel is from January to December, if you can put it that way. It is computationally heavy. Downloading it to your local computer can be stressful. We face a lot of challenges doing that at HiGuide. But GE is a good platform to use to simplify this data, to extract, to manipulate, and do all sort of analysis. And the embeddings are abstract. Using all the 64 bands, they are hard to interpret because this is like just the mind. I think Dr. Jen called it at HiGuide, the mind of AI. The AI looked through all this data set, Earth observation data set, and then this is what it has learned from each of those data sets, combining them. And these are relevant, useful links related to alpha embeddings, some tutorials and the data on GE. And then I want to say a special thank you to Dr. Jenny and to the entire YCGS for this opportunity to present some of these things. Also, a big thanks to HiGuide. This is where I met Dr. Jen and some of wonderful collaborators on some of the work I've been doing. Also, my current institution, Washington State University, where I'll be graduating. I should be graduating by next year, so I'm in the job market. And I also want to thank my alma mater, University of Ibadan, where I did my undergraduate. I have a lot of collaborators there as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was really insightful and very helpful for getting a little understanding of Alpha Earth embeddings and Google Earth Engine. So I think people should have the ability to put some questions in the chat, or if you want to just raise your hand and unmute and ask questions. We do have a little under 10 minutes to answer some questions. And maybe while we're waiting for questions, I would like to just kind of kick it off by asking you, since you have had a little bit of time to work with this new data product, for people who already are familiar in general with Google Earth Engine, what would you say is sort of the most important thing for people to wrap their minds around, their heads around, like the mindset set shift that they need to make when working with these embeddings versus with traditional products, remote sensing products?
Yeah, I think a lot of information has also been added with respect to this is that we should not see it as spectral, our Landsat spectral data that you can interpret as band one, band two has unique information. No, this is just a vector embeddings and contains values, I think ranges from -1 to +1. And this is just the output from an AI model. It does not necessarily capture some intrinsic information which with respect to reflectance or no, all those information have been combined. And this is the output from the combination of that from an AI. So I think we might tend to say, okay, band one was very useful. That will affect the semantic information from the vector because together that's when they can make sense. So I think it's a very crucial part of the puzzle that we need to know before working with it. Yeah.
Thank you. And so I really appreciated the diversity of examples that you've shared with us, from the rocky habitat to just the urban changes. Are there other applications that you've been thinking about or that you think, or even using those to apply to specific contexts or problems that are, getting you excited, or that you think there's a lot of potential for this to be used?
Yeah, I think just like the work we are doing, the mapping of perception, I think I find it very, very interesting that this data set can also be used in socioeconomic related studies. And just like we did at HiGuide, it carries some environmental related information, which also affects human activity. The data set carries information about the climate, which affect a whole lot of things. So there is a myriad application. I think they are also offering like 10,000 or so to see people apply this data set. Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, there is a request in the chat just for helpful information and links, and I appreciate you had the QR codes and a bunch of great resources linked in your talk. Thank you for including those. Maybe what we'll do is we can compile those and either get them on the YCGS website or send them out through email. We'll have to figure out internally how to best share that. So let me just see, are there any questions here from the participants? I mean, it was really interesting to see the reduction in error, the improvement in the prediction accuracy. Have you and your colleagues must have thought a little bit about what are those missing that the combination of the data is getting? Like, it's a little surprising, right? That just by sort of synthesizing all of this information, it's able to detect these new patterns. Do you have any thoughts about, why are we seeing the improvements, or what are the indices, what are the bands and the sensors themselves missing that this new product is getting?
Yeah, I think, that's a very good question. I think with the embeddings, it is data richness. Combining data from different sources makes it very, very useful. So that means at a pixel level, 10 meter by 10 meter, we are not only capturing the optical reflectance, the height or LiDAR metrics related from JEDI, we're also capturing climatic information. We are capturing elevation-related information. So each pixel is a data-rich vector feature. So I think incorporating all of those into one output makes it very unique, makes it really, really unique compared to our traditional remote sensing data set.
Yeah, and I appreciate also in one of your early slides, you noted it's improving the consistency across the metrics also that might be adding some information, making everything just more comparable and consistent across space and across time. Well, I don't see any other questions, or I don't see we have a quiet audience. Well, those are all the questions I have. So maybe we will wrap it up and give people a minute or two before their next Zoom meeting or event. I want to thank you again so much, Michael. Really informative and really helpful. We're so happy to have you joining us today. Yeah, I hope you have a great day. Thanks everybody in the audience for joining us today. And feel free to shoot us an email if you have ideas about other speakers or topics that we should cover in the future. We're looking to kind of continue these webinar series for the community. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, everyone.